Oh, hi. There's one thing that I consider a crazy life hack, and that is to learn how to learn. Because, like any other skill, you can get better at it. So when you get new information, it gets in properly and it stays in here instead of just forgetting everything the next day. So in this episode of YouTube Art School, how about I give you a little glimpse of the science of learning. And later in the video, I'll also give you a couple of tips to make sure that you learn as fast and as best as you can. Oh, and you'll see the video is a little different than usual. Here's what I mean. All right, class is in session. Pay attention. This video will be split into 3 chapters where I'll be focusing on tips inspired by neuroscience, or the science of the nervous system, including, of course, the brain, to help you drastically improve your learning. I think we've all felt stuck or frustrated at some point with our progress learning art, or anything else for that matter. Asking questions like, why can't I get my bum down on a chair and focus on my art when it's something that I love and want to do in the future? Or why does everyone seem to be improving much faster? Are they cheating? Or am I too old to learn? Am I doomed from the start because of my age? Or why do I get anxious just thinking about doing art? Why do I procrastinate so much? Before the tips though, let's quickly go over exactly how the brain learns anything. The rest will make a lot more sense if we have a baseline understanding of the learning process. Introduction. The learning process. Learning anything requires your brain to physically change. What? The brain is made out of a bajillion neurons, the cells of the brain. To orchestrate everything that happens in your body, communication is key. Communication between your neurons. Neurons communicate between themselves, but they can't talk, so instead, they use their little arms, called the synapses, to pass along information to the next. If they only have 2 arms and they need to be exchanging information with 3 neurons, then they can just magically grow a 3rd arm. No problem. Wait, so when they can't grow any more arms, you stop learning? Yes, if there was a limit. But neurons are awesome, and they can always grow more arms, so you can always learn more. You can't run out of space like a computer. Wow. Now, what sucks is that the bond between neurons, the strength their little synapse arms are holding each other with, is super weak at first. They can pass along some information, but think of those arms as little scrawny arms with no strength. Unless these arms get a workout, they'll eventually let go of each other. And if they let go, you've just forgotten what you learned before. They can't exchange information anymore. Ah, man. So how do you make sure they don't let go? How do you make sure you retain the information you learn? How do you work out these little synapse arms and make that bond between them strong and durable? You gotta put in those reps, bruh. Practice. When you do, the reward system of the body kicks in and you feel good about yourself. When you get better at anything, you get the happy hormone, dopamine. It makes you feel great, and so you're more likely to do it again next time. The more you practice, the stronger the neurons' arms get and the better they get at communication, just like any long-term relationship. The result is you get better at whatever it is you're practicing. The ability that neurons have to create more arms and strengthen those arms with experience is what's called neuroplasticity. Essentially, your brain is like Play-Doh, and you literally shape it slightly differently when you learn something new. Problem number 1. Just like working out your arm muscles in real life, strengthening those synapse arms takes a lot of energy. It's tiring. The brain would much rather do something easier, and it definitely lets us know every time we think about learning anything. When we try to focus to learn something, the first system of the brain that activates is the stress system. The same kind of stress that you'd get if you were about to start an exam at school, or when you get scared of something. It's not a good feeling. It feels way better to push that back and not do it, aka procrastinate. Problem number 2, the brain's neuroplasticity, or again, its ability to make and strengthen new connections between neurons, is much better when you're young. Up until you're 20-25 years old, it won't take as much of an effort for you to learn something new, to create and strengthen the bond between neurons. After 25 though, as an adult, your Play-Doh brain is now all dried up. Oh no. The connections that were there remain, but new ones are much harder to make, just like playing with dried Play-Doh. Thus the saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. The good news is that it's not true at all.
What?
There are ways to add a splash of water and get that soft Play-Doh back as adults, and to get it as soft as when you were younger. So let's jump to the tips to see how we can solve those problems and improve your learning overall, regardless of your age. And before we move on to the first chapter, learning how to learn is super important, but learning what to learn might be just as much, if not more important. And if you've been struggling learning art and seeing progress, I might have just the thing for you. If you're a subscriber, you know this already, but I've built a complete art education program for beginners to more advanced artists. Basically a university level course that you can tackle from the comfort of your home, yet you can still hang out with your classmates thanks to our Discord server. And I wanted to mention the New Year's sale that is almost over. Next month it's not gonna be any sale. So if you're looking for the best deal on the program, that would be right now, because there's not going to be a discount this big until Christmas in a year from now. So check it out with the link down in the video description. All right, back to the video. Chapter 1, the power of focus plus urgency. The most important factor when learning is your focus, your ability to focus on a specific task, like trying to understand what a person might be saying, like what I'm saying right now. If you've been listening to anything I said so far, that's your focus at play. Focus is really a cocktail of hormones the nervous system produces when trying to learn something, or more broadly, whenever you focus on anything. It makes us more alert. Like I mentioned before, that cocktail of hormones that comes along during the early stages of learning will feel like stress, agitation, and confusion. It comes from the same part of the brain as any other types of stress. I think just knowing about it helps. It helps to understand that you should feel stress when focusing. It means it's working. The learning process has started. And then when you do get better, you get rewarded with dopamine. Feels good. What's important to know is that the initial stress you feel when you start to focus on a specific skill is always greater at the beginning. It gets much easier to get past that initial stress response the more often you do it. It never really fully goes away though. You just gotta learn to deal with it, to take the initiative anyways. Something else that makes it easier is to limit the challenge as much as possible initially. Don't commit to too much, start easy. The greater the challenge, the stronger the stress response. If you overwhelm yourself right from the start, it'll take much longer before the reward system is able to kick in, and then you're left with more stress and little reward. You give up. You tap out. Think of it this way. The difference between your level of stress and your level of reward is how much you can focus. If the stress hormones get too high relative to your reward hormone, you quit. That's why it's so important to have a good teacher. That's why I'm always trying to improve. If you learn a lot quickly, your reward hormone always gets higher and you can focus longer, thus improving faster over time. Your focus is kind of like your fuel to keep going. Now, as adults, unfortunately, this is not enough. Along with focus, we need urgency. Kids don't need it as much, although of course it helps them too, but for adults, without urgency, there's no learning. Urgency in my case is that I have to teach what I learn. I don't want to be embarrassed and make a fool out of myself, so when I learn anything related to art, I'm paying extra attention to make sure that I understand properly. My urgency is the fear of embarrassment if I try to explain something that I don't fully understand. Urgency can come from any kind of fear of your rival getting better than you, fear of not reaching your art goals, fear of running out of money, fear of not getting good enough to eventually live from your art. Whatever it is, urgency doesn't have to come from fear either. It can come from love too. If you're obsessed with learning art, if you can't stop drawing like some people do, that works too. In any case, to learn and retain information, you need focus and urgency, especially as an adult. Chapter 2. Focus is limited, don't waste it. Like mentioned in the previous chapter, the focus you have will be the difference between your reward hormone and your stress hormones. That difference is different for everyone. It will also be different for you depending on what you're trying to learn. If you're passionate about something, you'll have more focus to play with. Now, since we're talking about hormones here, the nervous system can only produce a certain amount each day. It's definitely not infinite. So then it begs the question, what exactly uses focus throughout your day? Ideally, we'd only save our focus reserves for learning, stuff that's important, but unfortunately, focus is also spent when we focus on anything, even when we're not learning. You look at your phone to play a game, you're using focus. You browse through Instagram, you're using focus. You watch 20 TikTok videos, you're losing more focus. Yikes. So what happens when you focus on useless stuff too much and then try to learn something? Maybe there won't be much focus left for things that matter. No focus, no learning. There are tricks to gain more focus during the day though. So here it is. After you've been focusing on learning something, instead of taking a break looking at your phone or browsing YouTube, therefore losing even more focus and kind of defying the purpose of the break in the first place, defocus. look at something far away, not one specific thing. The horizon, if you can see it. Try to see as far and as wide as possible. Try to not focus on anything for a few seconds to a few minutes. Just doing that alone should regenerate a little bit of that focus to help you keep going a bit longer before you completely run out for the day. Another trick is to reframe your approach to learning. Instead of looking at the big picture and thinking about everything that you still have to accomplish to reach your big goals and increase your stress response as a result, try to flip that around and remind yourself of everything that you've accomplished today. All the smaller goals that you might have accomplished or made solid progress towards. However small the progress was, if you can identify that progress, the improvement, that's enough to give a boost to your reward system and slightly increase the amount of focus that you have in the tank for the day, increasing the buffer between the stress and the reward hormone, and allowing you to keep focusing longer. Remember, if you can focus longer, you progress faster, you learn more. So essentially, try slicing your big goals into many smaller goals that are easier to reach with practice. Those tricks can really help extend your focus, but focus is still limited, so don't waste it. Chapter 3. Sleep on it. This last chapter will be much quicker. Here it is. During the day, you don't actually learn anything. Instead, everything is stored in your short-term memory, awaiting processing by the brain. You learn at night, during deep sleep. During the day, the neurons might order some new synapse arms or request some stronger arms to replace weaker ones if you studied or practiced something. But it's only while you're sleeping that those orders actually get fulfilled. AKA the synapses only change while you're sleeping. If you don't sleep, all those orders just get scrapped. You forget. Sleep is absolutely essential to learning. You might have heard that sleep is important before, and that's the reason. If you had an amazing day of studying, were able to focus a lot throughout the day and get a lot of practice in, all that goes to waste if you don't sleep well. It's just like working out really hard at the gym and then not eating anything to feed your muscles. Synapses are marked for change during the day and actually change during deep sleep. So here's the last tip. Learn something today, sleep on it, or lose it. If you don't get enough sleep, someone who focuses as much as you, yet gets a lot more sleep, will always progress a lot faster. Don't let that happen. Don't waste your efforts. And that's it for today's class. If you focused on anything I talked about in the video today, you physically changed your brain. Congratulations. You've ordered more or better synapses to improve communication between your brain cells. And hopefully you had enough focus to get most of the information out of the video. Now, to make sure that you remember all that stuff tomorrow, sleep well tonight. Okay, bye.